The blood-red sunset blazed across the Arizona sky as Olivia Holbrook clutched her meager possessions. The stagecoach that had abandoned her at the edge of Superior, already disappearing in a cloud of dust. She had arrived with nothing but a small carpetbag, a letter of employment that would never be honored, and a heart heavy with a burden no one in this dusty mining town could possibly understand. Superior, Arizona Territory, 1885, was a town built on copper dreams and desperate souls. The late summer heat pressed down on Olivia like a physical weight as she took her first tentative steps toward the collection of wooden buildings that comprised the town's main street. Her dark hair was pinned beneath her bonnet, her traveling dress dusty from the journey, and her green eyes wary of the curious glances cast her way. "You looking for someone, miss?" A gruff voice startled her, belonging to an older man sweeping the boardwalk in front of what appeared to be the general store. "I was to be employed as a teacher," Olivia replied, trying to keep the tremble from her voice. "But I've just learned the position has been filled." The old man shrugged. "That's the way of things. Nothing stays certain in a mining town. You might try the Silver Dollar. They're usually looking for help." Olivia clutched her bag tighter. The Silver Dollar was clearly a saloon, judging by the piano music and raucous laughter spilling from its swinging doors. A respectable woman would never, but she was not in Boston anymore, and her funds would sustain her for 3 days at most. The sun had nearly disappeared by the time she pushed through the doors of the modest hotel on the opposite side of the street. The lobby was simple but clean, with a middle-aged woman behind the counter who eyed Olivia with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "Room for one night," Olivia said, placing some coins on the counter. "And perhaps you might know of employment opportunities for a woman of education." The woman, Mrs. Bailey, according to the nameplate on her desk, looked Olivia up and down. "Education doesn't mean much here unless you can teach the miners' children, and that position's been filled by the foreman's niece." "So I've been informed," Olivia replied, her voice smaller than she intended. Mrs. Bailey's expression softened slightly. "There's a dress shop that might need help, or the doctor's always looking for someone who can read his medical books and mix remedies. Dr. MacGregor's getting on in years." Olivia nodded gratefully as she took the room key. "Thank you. I'll inquire tomorrow." Her room was spare a narrow bed, a washstand, and a small window overlooking the dark street below. Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, removed her bonnet, and allowed herself, for the first time since stepping off the stagecoach, to breathe deeply. That's when the tears came, silent at first, then building into quiet sobs that shook her slender frame. She hadn't wanted to come west. It had been her last resort after the scandal in Boston, a scandal that wasn't her fault, but had destroyed her reputation nonetheless. Her father's gambling debts had left her destitute after his death, and the fiancé who had once professed undying love had quickly found reason to break their engagement when her financial situation became clear. Wiping her tears, Olivia changed into her nightdress and slipped between the rough sheets. Tomorrow she would find work. Tomorrow she would start building a new life. Tomorrow she would begin to forget the whispers and pointed fingers of Boston society. But sleep did not come easily, and when it did, her dreams were haunted by the words of the fortune-teller she had consulted in a moment of weakness before leaving Boston. "The Holbrook women carry a curse, child, a curse of solitude, hearts that love too deeply, only to be abandoned. It has been so for generations." Olivia had laughed then, thinking it merely the dramatic pronouncement of a woman looking to earn a few extra coins. Now, lying alone in a strange town with no prospects and no connections, the words felt prophetic. Morning came with the sounds of Superior stirring to life. Miners headed to their shifts, shopkeepers opened their businesses, and Olivia prepared herself to face the day. She donned her second-best dress, a navy blue cotton with white collar that had seen better days but still spoke of Eastern refinement, and set out to find employment. The dressmaker had no need for help. The hotel was fully staffed. The general store owner eyed her fine manners with suspicion and said he needed someone who wouldn't mind getting their hands dirty. By midday, Olivia's hopes were dwindling along with her courage. Dr. MacGregor's office was her last hope. It was a small whitewashed building near the edge of town, with a neatly painted sign announcing medical services hanging above the door. Olivia smoothed her skirts, took a deep breath, and knocked. The door was opened by a man who was decidedly not getting on in years. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-bronzed skin that spoke of outdoor work rather than a physician's indoor profession. His eyes were a startling blue beneath the brim of a well-worn Stetson, and there was a day's worth of stubble on his jaw. "Can I help you, madam?" His voice was deep with a slight drawl that marked him as not native to the territory. Olivia faltered, wondering if she had the wrong building. "I'm looking for Dr. MacGregor. I was told he might be in need of assistance." The man's expression softened. "Dr. MacGregor passed on last winter. I'm the closest thing to a doctor this town's got now, though I'm more practiced with horses than people." "Oh." Olivia felt her last hope crumble. "I'm sorry to hear of his passing and to have troubled you." She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "You're looking for work?" Olivia turned back. "Yes, I arrived yesterday to take a teaching position only to find it filled. I have some education and can read and write well. I was hoping I could use someone to help organize the doctor's medicines and books," he said, gesturing inside. "Doc left quite a mess and I've been meaning to make sense of it. Can you read Latin?" "Yes," Olivia said, hope flaring anew. "And I assisted my father with his correspondence for many years. I'm quite organized." The man seemed to consider her for a moment, then stepped aside to let her enter. "I'm Adam Langley. Most folks call me Doc now, though I was a horse doctor before I inherited this practice." "Olivia Holbrook," she replied, extending her hand. "Recently of Boston." "You're a long way from home, Miss Holbrook." His handshake was firm but gentle. Home is no longer an option. She kept her voice steady, determined not to reveal too much of her circumstances. Adam Langley nodded as if he understood completely. "Superior has a way of collecting people who need a fresh start. Come on in, and I'll show you what needs doing." The interior of the doctor's office was indeed in disarray. Books were stacked haphazardly on shelves, medical instruments lay uncategorized in drawers, and the cabinet of medicines looked as if a whirlwind had passed through it. "As you can see," Adam said with a gesture that encompassed the chaos, "I could use someone with organizing skills. I can pay $3 a week to start. If you prove useful, we can discuss a more permanent arrangement." $3 was barely enough to cover her room and meals, but it was a start. "That would be acceptable, Mr. Langley." "Doc," he corrected. "Everyone calls me Doc, even though I keep telling them I'm not really qualified." "Yet you're the one tending to the town's medical needs," Olivia observed. A shadow passed over his features. "Someone has to, and I picked up enough from my father and from treating injuries in the field to handle most things that come my way." "The field?" she asked, curious despite herself. "I rode with the 7th Cavalry. After the war." His tone indicated that was all he intended to say on the matter. Olivia nodded, understanding his reticence. Many men who had served in the recent conflicts preferred not to speak of their experiences. "When would you like me to begin?" she asked, changing the subject. "Now's as good a time as any," Adam replied, "if you're not otherwise engaged." Olivia spent the remainder of the day sorting through medical texts, creating a rudimentary cataloging system and beginning to organize the medicine cabinet. Adam saw patients throughout the afternoon: a miner with a crushed finger, a child with a fever, a pregnant woman seeking advice, and Olivia found herself impressed with his gentle manner and practical knowledge. By the time the sun was setting, she had made considerable progress in bringing order to the front office. Adam stood in the doorway between the examination room and the office, watching her work with an expression that might have been approval. "You've accomplished more in one day than I have in 3 months," he said. Olivia felt a flush of pride. "Organization comes naturally to me. Tomorrow I'll continue with the medicines and perhaps begin transcribing some of your patient records into a proper ledger. That would be helpful." He paused, then added, "Have you secured lodging in town?" "I'm staying at the hotel for now, though I'll need to find more affordable accommodation soon." Adam nodded thoughtfully. "Mrs. Sandoval rents rooms above her restaurant. They're simple but clean, and she includes meals. Might be easier on your purse than the hotel." "Thank you for the suggestion. I'll inquire tomorrow." As she gathered her shawl to leave, Adam reached for his hat. "I'll walk you back to the hotel. Streets can get rowdy this time of evening when the miners finish their shifts." Olivia wanted to protest that she could find her way alone, but the truth was, she was grateful for the escort. The main street was indeed filling with men heading toward the saloons, their loud voices and occasional shouts making her uncomfortable. They walked in companionable silence until they reached the hotel. At the door, Olivia turned to thank him. "Miss Holbrook," Adam said before she could speak, "might I ask what brought you all the way from Boston to Superior? It's not exactly a common destination for Eastern ladies." Olivia hesitated, weighing how much to reveal. "Circumstances changed for me after my father's passing. The teaching position seemed like an opportunity for a fresh start." Adam studied her face in the fading light, his expression unreadable. "Well, Superior might not be what you expected, but it has a way of growing on people. I came here intending to stay a month. That was 3 years ago." "And what brought you here?" she asked, finding herself genuinely curious about this man who seemed both gruff and kind. A shadow crossed his face. "Same as you, I expect. Looking for somewhere to start over." He tipped his hat. "Good night, Miss Holbrook. I'll see you tomorrow at 8. Olivia watched him walk away, his tall figure silhouetted against the dim light of the street lamps. There was something about Adam Langley that intrigued her, a sense of contained strength and hidden depth that she hadn't expected to find in this remote mining town. As she turned to enter the hotel, she reminded herself sternly that she hadn't come to Superior looking for connection or attachment. Those paths led only to heartbreak, as she well knew. She was here to work, to survive, and to forget the pain of the past. Nothing more. The next morning dawned bright and hot, promising another scorching day in the desert town. Olivia dressed carefully in her most practical dress, pinned her hair in a simple but neat style, and set out for Adam's office with determination in her step. Today, she would inquire about Mrs. Sandoval's rooms and continue bringing order to the medical practice. Adam was already there when she arrived, tending to a miner with a deep gash in his arm. He nodded to Olivia as she entered, his hand steady as he stitched the wound closed. "Miss Holbrook, there's coffee on the stove if you want some. This won't take much longer." Olivia found the coffee pot and poured herself a cup, watching surreptitiously as Adam worked. His hands were large but moved with surprising delicacy as he completed the final stitches and wrapped the miner's arm in a clean bandage. "Keep it dry and come back in 5 days so I can check how it's healing," Adam instructed the man. "And maybe ease up on the drinking before you handle dynamite next time." The miner grinned sheepishly. "Yes, Doc, thanks for patching me up again." After the miner left, Adam turned to Olivia. "Sorry about that. Not exactly a proper welcome for a lady's first official day of work." Olivia shook her head. "Please don't apologize. I'm not squeamish about blood or injuries. My father was often ill in his final years, and I assisted with his care." Adam looked at her with new interest. "That's a useful quality out here. Medicine in the territories isn't always as dignified as it might be back east." The day passed quickly as Olivia continued organizing the office. Around noon, she ventured out to find Mrs. Sandoval's restaurant and inquire about lodging. The small eatery was filled with miners and townspeople enjoying hearty stews and fresh bread. Mrs. Sandoval herself, a plump, cheerful woman of Mexican descent, showed Olivia the available room above the restaurant. It was indeed simple. A narrow bed, a small dresser, and a washstand with a window overlooking the back alley. But it was clean, and the rent included 2 meals a day, which would stretch Olivia's meager wages considerably. "I'll take it," she told Mrs. Sandoval. "I can move in tomorrow if that's suitable." "Of course, Querida," Mrs. Sandoval replied with a warm smile. "It will be nice to have another woman in the house. Too many men in this town." Olivia returned to the medical office feeling more secure now that her immediate housing concerns were addressed. She found Adam examining a young boy with a rash on his arms. "Poison oak," he was explaining to the child's worried mother. "It's not serious, but it's uncomfortable. Keep him from scratching if you can, and apply this salve 3 times a day." He handed the woman a small tin. "And maybe keep him away from the creek where the oak grows thickest." After they left, Olivia resumed her cataloging of the medicine cabinet. "I've secured a room at Mrs. Sandoval's," she told Adam. "Thank you for the recommendation. Glad to hear it. Rosa Sandoval is good people, and she makes the best tamales this side of the border." He moved to wash his hands in the basin. "How are you finding Superior so far? Not exactly Boston, I imagine." "No," Olivia admitted, "but it has its own charm, and the people have been kind for the most part." "For the most part?" Adam raised an eyebrow. "Has someone been less than welcoming?" Olivia hesitated, not wanting to complain. "It's nothing, really, just a few curious stares." "I suppose a woman traveling alone is something of an oddity here." Adam's expression darkened slightly. "People talk too much and mind their own business too little in small towns, but they'll lose interest once something more exciting comes along." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of more patients, a woman in labor who needed to be attended at her home, requiring Adam to leave immediately. Before rushing out, he told Olivia she could close up the office when she finished for the day. Left alone, Olivia continued her work, finding an unexpected satisfaction in bringing order to the chaotic office. As she sorted through patient records, she couldn't help noticing the breadth of Adam's practice, everything from setting broken bones to delivering babies to treating typhoid fever. He might claim he wasn't a proper doctor, but it was clear he served a vital role in Superior. The next day, Olivia moved her few possessions to Mrs. Sandoval's and settled into a routine that brought her more comfort than she had expected to find in this dusty frontier town. Mornings and afternoons were spent at the medical office, organizing, transcribing, and occasionally assisting Adam with patients when an extra pair of hands was needed. Evenings were passed in the cozy warmth of Mrs. Sandoval's kitchen, where Olivia helped prepare meals and learned Spanish phrases from the older woman. Adam proved to be a fair employer, adding small additional tasks to her duties as the days passed and increasing her wages accordingly. He began teaching her about the medicines and their uses, seeming pleased by her quick understanding and retention of the information. "You have a good mind for medicine," he told her one afternoon, after she had correctly identified the appropriate remedy for a patient's symptoms. "Better than mine, truth be told." Olivia felt herself blush at the compliment. "I simply have a good memory. You have the practical knowledge that truly matters." As September gave way to October, Superior experienced a brief respite from the summer heat. The cooler temperatures seemed to loosen something in the town, with more people spending time outdoors and community gatherings becoming more frequent. Olivia found herself gradually being accepted as part of the town, nodding to familiar faces on her walks to and from the medical office. It was during this time that she first encountered the dark undercurrents that existed beneath Superior's surface. She was returning to Mrs. Sandoval's after work one evening when she heard raised voices from an alley. Pausing, she saw three men surrounding a fourth, a Chinese man she recognized as the laundryman who had recently opened a shop near the edge of town. "We don't need your kind here," one of the men was saying, his voice slurred with drink. "Taking honest work from white men." "I take no one's work," the Chinese man replied, his voice calm but wary. "I provide service many want." "Well, we don't want you providing anything," another man growled, shoving the laundryman against the wall. Olivia hesitated, torn between fear and the need to intervene. Before she could decide what to do, a familiar voice cut through the confrontation. "That's enough, Matthews." Adam stepped into the alley, his posture relaxed but his eyes hard as he addressed the apparent leader of the group. "This ain't your business, Doc," Matthews replied, though Olivia noticed he took a step back from the Chinese man. "Mr. Chen is my patient, which makes it my business," Adam said evenly. "And last I checked, Superior doesn't have laws against someone running an honest business." He's taking nothing from you unless you've recently expressed interest in washing shirts for a living," Adam interrupted. "Now, why don't you and your friends head over to the Silver Dollar? First round's on me." For a tense moment, Olivia thought the men might refuse, but something in Adam's steady gaze seemed to make them reconsider. With muttered curses and dark looks at Mr. Chen, they shuffled out of the alley, one of them shouldering roughly past Adam as he went. Only when they were gone did Olivia step forward from where she had been watching. "Are you all right, Mr. Chen?" Both men turned, surprised to see her. "Miss Holbrook," Adam frowned, "you shouldn't be out alone this time of evening." "I was on my way home from the office," she explained, then turned to the laundryman. "Are you hurt?" Mr. Chen shook his head. "No harm done, miss. Thank you for concern." He bowed slightly to Adam. "And thank you, doctor." "Those men," Olivia began as Mr. Chen walked away. "They were threatening him simply because he's Chinese." Adam's expression was grim. "Prejudice runs deep out here, especially when times are hard. The mine laid off 20 men last month, and folks are looking for someone to blame." "That's barbaric," Olivia said, unable to hide her disgust. "It is," Adam agreed, "but it's also reality. The West isn't the wide, open land of opportunity that Eastern papers make it out to be. It's a place where people bring all their old hatreds and find new ones." He sighed, then seemed to notice the darkening sky. "Come on, I'll walk you to Mrs. Sandoval's, and maybe from now on you should finish up at the office before sundown." As they walked, Olivia found herself studying Adam's profile, wondering about the experiences that had shaped him. He was clearly educated, yet he'd chosen to live in this remote town. He stood up for the vulnerable, yet something in his manner suggested he preferred to remain apart from the community he served. "You're staring, Miss Holbrook," Adam said without looking at her. Olivia felt herself blush. "I apologize. I was just wondering about you." "Not much to wonder about," he replied. "I'm a simple man trying to do some good where I can." "I don't believe you're simple at all, Dr. Langley," Olivia said softly. This earned her a sidelong glance and the ghost of a smile. Back to doctor, is it? I thought we'd progress to Adam when working together. Adam, then, Olivia conceded, liking the way his name felt on her lips. And you may call me Olivia if you wish. They reached Mrs. Sandoval's and Adam tipped his hat in farewell. Good night, Olivia. Be careful walking home alone. Superior isn't Boston. No, she agreed, thinking of the incident she had just witnessed. It certainly isn't. That night, lying in her narrow bed listening to the sounds of the restaurant below closing up for the evening, Olivia found herself thinking more about Adam Langley than was strictly proper. There was something compelling about him, a combination of strength and gentleness, principle and pragmatism. He reminded her, in some ways, of her father before gambling and drink had taken hold of him, a man of integrity who stood by his convictions. But she quickly chided herself for such thoughts. She had learned the hard way that admiration could too easily become attachment, and attachment inevitably led to pain. The fortune teller's words echoed in her mind. The Holbrook women carry a curse of solitude. Her mother had died of a broken heart after Olivia's father began his descent into gambling and drinking. Her grandmother had been abandoned by a husband who went west seeking gold and never returned. And Olivia herself had been betrayed by the man who had promised to stand by her through any circumstance. No, it was better to keep her relationship with Adam strictly professional. Superior was her chance to start anew, to build a life based on independence and self-reliance. Romance had no place in that plan. The following weeks saw a subtle shift in Olivia's role at the medical practice. Adam began asking her opinion on patients' symptoms, teaching her how to prepare more complex remedies, and even allowing her to stitch minor wounds under his supervision. It was challenging work, far removed from the teaching position she had originally sought, but Olivia found it deeply satisfying. The town, too, began to accept her in this new role. Women who had initially been wary of the Eastern lady doctor now sought her out for advice on feminine complaints they were reluctant to discuss with a male physician. Miners' wives invited her to their modest homes for tea. Even the rough men who frequented the saloons tipped their hats respectfully when they passed her on the street. As October progressed, Superior prepared for its annual harvest festival, a tradition brought by settlers from the East and embraced enthusiastically in a town with precious few social outlets. The main street would be decorated with autumn colors, tables set up for a community feast, and a dance held in the evening. You should attend, Mrs. Sandoval told Olivia as they prepared dinner one evening. It is good fun and you work too hard. Young women should dance and laugh sometimes. Olivia smiled but shook her head. I'm not much for dancing, I'm afraid. Nonsense. Everyone likes to dance. You just need the right partner. Mrs. Sandoval gave her a knowing look. Perhaps Dr. Langley will ask you. Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks. Adam and I have a professional relationship, nothing more. If you say so, Querida, Mrs. Sandoval replied, clearly unconvinced. But I see how he looks at you when he thinks no one notices. Olivia dismissed the older woman's words as well-meaning but misguided matchmaking. Yet she couldn't deny a small flutter in her chest at the thought that Adam might view her as more than an employee. The day of the harvest festival arrived, bringing with it an unusually warm spell for late October. The medical office was quiet, with most of Superior's residents busy with festival preparations. Adam suggested they close early, and Olivia agreed, secretly pleased to have extra time to prepare for the evening's festivities. Despite her initial reluctance, she had decided to attend, partly at Mrs. Sandoval's insistence, and partly out of curiosity about this community celebration. Back in her room, Olivia opened her trunk and removed the one fine dress she had brought from Boston, a forest green silk with modest lace trim that brought out the color of her eyes. It was perhaps too formal for a frontier town's harvest celebration, but it was her only option beyond her everyday work dresses. Mrs. Sandoval exclaimed in delight when Olivia descended the stairs. So beautiful. All the men will want to dance with you tonight." Olivia smiled, touched by the woman's enthusiasm. "Thank you, but I'll be content to simply observe the festivities." "We will see about that," Mrs. Sandoval replied with a knowing wink. The main street of Superior had been transformed. Lanterns hung from wires strung between buildings, casting a warm glow as the sun began to set. Tables laden with food stretched down the center of the street, and a platform had been erected at one end where 3 men with fiddles and a banjo were tuning their instruments. Olivia walked alongside Mrs. Sandoval, marveling at the transformation. The hard-working, often grim mining town had taken on a festive air, with even the most weather-beaten miners dressed in their Sunday best, hair slicked down with pomade. She helped Mrs. Sandoval arrange her contributions on the community table's spicy tamales and sweet empanadas that were clearly popular, judging by how quickly people gathered around them. As she worked, Olivia scanned the growing crowd, telling herself she wasn't looking for anyone in particular. "He's not here yet," Mrs. Sandoval said, following Olivia's gaze. "The doctor always comes late to these things, never comfortable in crowds, that one." "I wasn't," Olivia began, but stopped at Mrs. Sandoval's knowing smile. "Is it that obvious? Only to a woman who has been in love before, Mrs. Sandoval replied gently. "But be patient with him. He carries heavy burdens from the past." Before Olivia could ask what she meant, they were joined by other women from town, and the conversation turned to the food preparations and festival arrangements. The music started soon after, and couples began to gather in the cleared space in front of the platform. Olivia found herself approached by several men requesting dances, the town's young blacksmith, a shopkeeper, even the bank manager, but she politely declined, claiming unfamiliarity with the dances. In truth, she was still scanning the edges of the gathering, looking for a tall figure in a worn Stetson. It was nearly 2 hours into the festival when she finally spotted him, standing slightly apart from the celebration, watching the dancers with an unreadable expression. He was dressed more formally than she had ever seen him, in a clean black coat and white shirt, though he still wore his usual boots and hat. Their eyes met across the crowd, and for a moment, neither moved. Then Adam began making his way toward her, nodding to townspeople who greeted him but never taking his eyes from Olivia. "Miss Holbrook," he said when he reached her, his voice low, "you look beautiful tonight." Olivia felt a flush rise to her cheeks. "Thank you, and it's Olivia, remember." We agreed. A smile touched his lips. "Olivia, then. I'm surprised to see you here. You didn't strike me as someone who enjoyed these sorts of gatherings." "I could say the same about you," she replied. "Mrs. Sandoval insisted I come. She said I work too hard and need to enjoy myself occasionally." "Mrs. Sandoval is a wise woman," Adam said, his eyes still holding hers. "Are you enjoying yourself?" "I am now," Olivia admitted, then immediately wished she could take back the 2 honest words. Something flickered in Adam's expression, surprise, perhaps, or pleasure. The music changed to a slower tune, and he held out his hand. "Would you dance with me, Olivia?" She hesitated only briefly before placing her hand in his. "I'd like that." His hand was warm and calloused against hers as he led her to the dance area. When he placed his other hand lightly on her waist, Olivia felt a jolt of awareness that had nothing to do with the chilly evening air. They moved together to the music, a simple waltz that Olivia remembered from her days in Boston society. "You dance well," she said, surprised by his easy grace. "My mother insisted all her sons learn proper manners, even on the frontier," Adam replied. "Dancing was part of that education." "You have brothers," a shadow crossed his face. "Had two, both gone now." "I'm sorry," Olivia said softly, sensing the pain behind his words. "It was a long time ago." His hand tightened slightly on hers. "What about you? Any family back east?" Olivia shook her head. "My mother died when I was young. My father passed last year. There was an aunt, but we lost touch after my father's death." Adam seemed to hear what she wasn't saying. "Family can be complicated." "Yes," Olivia agreed, grateful he didn't press for details. "Very complicated." They danced in silence for a moment, the music wrapping around them like a protective cocoon, separating them from the curious glances of Superior's residents. Olivia was acutely aware of Adam's hand at her waist, the subtle scent of soap and leather that surrounded him, the way his eyes seemed to darken when they met hers. When the music ended, neither moved immediately to separate. "Would you like to walk?" Adam asked finally. "It's getting rather crowded here." Olivia nodded, suddenly eager to escape the watchful eyes of the townspeople. They made their way to the edge of the celebration, where the lantern light faded into the natural silver of the rising moon. The desert night had turned cool, and Olivia shivered slightly in her silk dress. Without a word, Adam removed his coat and placed it around her shoulders. The weight of it was comforting, and it carried his warmth and scent. "Thank you," she murmured. They walked in companionable silence for a few minutes, moving away from the noise of the festival toward the quieter edge of town. The vast desert stretched beyond, mysterious and beautiful in the moonlight. "It's so different from Boston," Olivia said softly. "There you can hardly see the stars for all the gas lamps and buildings. Here the sky seems endless." "That's what drew me to the territories initially," Adam replied. "The space, the freedom. Back east I always felt confined." "What made you stay in Superior?" Olivia asked, genuinely curious. "You could practice medicine anywhere." Adam was quiet for a moment, as if considering his answer. "I came through with a cattle drive headed to California. Dr. Mac Gregor was getting on in years and had no one to help him. When I stopped to assist with a difficult birth, he offered me a position as his assistant." He shrugged. "It was supposed to be temporary, just until he could find someone properly trained. But weeks turned into months, and then he died, and somehow I became responsible for the health of an entire town." "You don't make it sound like a burden you resent," Olivia observed. "I don't. Not anymore." He turned to look at her. "And what about you? What really brought you all the way from Boston to a dusty mining town in Arizona territory?" Olivia hesitated, uncertain how much to reveal. But something about the quiet night and Adam's steady presence made her want to share the truth. "My father was once a respected merchant in Boston," she began. "But he had a weakness for gambling that grew worse after my mother died. By the time he passed away last year, he had lost everything: our home, his business, our standing in society. The debts were substantial." She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the difficult part of her story. "I was engaged to be married to a man from a good family. When my father's situation became known, he decided our engagement was a mistake. His family couldn't be connected to such a scandal," he said. Adam's expression darkened. "He abandoned you when you needed support most." "He wasn't alone in that," Olivia said, the old bitterness rising despite her efforts to suppress it. "Friends, acquaintances, they all disappeared once the Holbrook name became associated with debt and disgrace. I took a position as a companion to an elderly woman to pay off what I could, but it wasn't enough." Adam finished when she faltered. Olivia nodded. I saw an advertisement for a teaching position in Superior. It seemed like Providence, a chance to use my education and start fresh somewhere no one knew the Holbrook name. Only to arrive and find the position filled, Adam said, understanding in his voice. Yes. For a moment, standing there with the stagecoach disappearing and not a friendly face in sight, I thought perhaps the fortune teller was right after all. Fortune teller, Adam's brow furrowed. Olivia immediately regretted mentioning it. It's silly, really. Before I left Boston, in a moment of weakness, I consulted a fortune teller. She told me the Holbrook women were cursed to be alone, that we love deeply but are destined to be abandoned. She tried to laugh, but it came out brittle. Superstitious nonsense, of course. Adam was quiet for a long moment, his eyes searching her face in the moonlight. Do you believe you're cursed, Olivia? The directness of the question startled her. No, not rationally. But sometimes when I think about my mother's broken heart, my grandmother's abandonment, my own experience, it's hard not to wonder if there isn't some pattern that follows the women in my family. They had stopped walking, standing now at the very edge of town with the vast desert before them, and the sounds of the festival a distant murmur behind them. Adam turned to face her fully, his expression intense in the silvery light. I don't believe in curses, he said quietly. I've seen too much of the world to think our paths are determined by anything but our own choices and the random chances of life. A scientific view, Olivia remarked, trying to lighten the suddenly heavy atmosphere between them. No, Adam replied, his voice deepening. A hopeful one, because if our futures aren't fixed by curses or fate, then we're free to create new patterns, to break cycles that have held us captive. He was standing very close now, close enough that Olivia could see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes, feel the warmth radiating from his body. Olivia, he said softly, I've known from the moment you walked into my office that you were someone special, someone who could change everything. Her heart was pounding so loudly she was certain he must hear it. Adam, you don't have to say anything, he interrupted gently. I know you came here to build a new life, not to find complications, and I'm not a man with much to offer a woman like you. But I want you to know that whatever brought you to superior chance, fate, or divine providence, I'm grateful for it. Olivia felt tears prick at her eyes, moved by the sincerity in his voice. I'm grateful too, she whispered. For a moment, it seemed he might kiss her. His gaze dropped to her lips and he leaned slightly forward, but then he straightened, a mask of restraint falling over his features. We should get back, he said, his voice rougher than before. People will talk. Let them, Olivia replied with sudden boldness, surprising herself. Adam smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his serious face. You are remarkable, Olivia Holbrook. They walked back to the festival in a silence charged with unspoken emotions. As they neared the lantern light, Adam stopped once more. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow? Not at Mrs. Sandoval's, but there's a small place just outside of town. Nothing fancy, but the food is good. Olivia knew she should refuse. Getting closer to Adam could only lead to heartache, if not because of some family curse, then because of the very real complications of their situations. Yet she found herself nodding. I'd like that very much. His smile was worth any risk. The next day passed in a blur of anticipation for Olivia. She worked alongside Adam at the office as usual. But there was a new awareness between them, a current of electricity that seemed to spark whenever they moved near each other. They were professional, as always, perhaps even more formal than usual, but Olivia caught Adam watching her when he thought she wouldn't notice, his expression a mixture of wonder and restraint. As evening approached, Olivia returned to Mrs. Sandoval's to change for dinner. She chose her second-best dress, a cornflower blue, that was less formal than the green silk, but still nicer than her everyday wear. Mrs. Sandoval helped her arrange her hair, tactfully not asking any questions about where Olivia was going, though the twinkle in her eye suggested she had her suspicions. Adam arrived precisely at 7, wearing a clean shirt and his best coat, his usually unruly hair neatly combed beneath his hat. He looked handsome in a rugged way that made Olivia's breath catch. "You look lovely," he said softly when she came downstairs. "Thank you." She accepted his offered arm, trying to ignore Mrs. Sandoval's delighted smile as they left. The restaurant was indeed small, but charming, a converted farmhouse at the edge of town, run by an Italian immigrant and his wife. They were seated at a corner table with a flickering candle between them, and for a moment, Olivia could almost imagine they were in a fine Boston establishment rather than the Arizona territory. Conversation flowed easily between them as they enjoyed a simple but delicious meal of pasta and fresh bread. Adam told her about growing up on a small ranch in Texas, about his time in the cavalry after the war, about his gradual transition from treating horses to treating people. Olivia shared stories of her childhood in Boston, her education, her dreams of becoming a teacher. It was only when the meal was nearly finished that the conversation turned more serious. "After what you told me last night," Adam began, "about your experiences in Boston, I understand why you might be hesitant to form attachments here." Olivia looked down at her plate. "It's not just what happened with my fiancé, it's a pattern I've observed. The women in my family don't seem destined for lasting happiness in love." Adam reached across the table to take her hand. "Olivia, look at me." She raised her eyes to meet his, struck by the intensity of his gaze. "I don't know what the future holds," he said quietly. "No one does. But I do know that I've never met anyone like you. Someone who combines strength and gentleness, intelligence and compassion in such perfect measure." Olivia felt a flush rise to her cheeks. "Adam, please, let me finish." His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand, sending shivers up her arm. "I'm not asking for promises. I know we haven't known each other long, but I want you to know that I see you, Olivia Holbrook, truly see you. Not as a Boston lady who's fallen on hard times, not as a convenient assistant in my practice, but as the remarkable woman you are." Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes. After months of being judged, dismissed, and reduced to her circumstances, Adam's words were like a balm to her wounded spirit. "I'm afraid," she admitted in a whisper. "Not of you, but of hoping again, of believing that happiness might be possible." "I understand fear," Adam said, his voice gentle. "I've spent years running from my own past, from connections, from anything that might lead to pain. But when you walked into my office that day, something changed for me." He squeezed her hand. "I'm not asking you to believe in forever tonight, just believe that tomorrow is possible, that's all." Olivia looked into his eyes, so blue and earnest in the candlelight, and felt something within her shift, a door opening where a wall had stood before. "Tomorrow," she repeated softly. "I think I can believe in that." The walk back to Mrs. Sandoval's was quiet, both of them lost in thought but comfortable in the silence. When they reached the door, Adam turned to face her. "Thank you for having dinner with me," he said formally, though his eyes were warm. "Thank you for asking me," Olivia replied. "I enjoyed it very much." He hesitated, then bent and placed a gentle kiss on her cheek, his lips barely brushing her skin but leaving a trail of warmth that lingered long after he stepped back. "Good night, Olivia." "Good night, Adam." That night, lying in her narrow bed, Olivia touched her cheek where Adam had kissed her, replaying the evening in her mind. For the first time since arriving in Superior, perhaps for the first time since her father's death, she allowed herself to imagine a future filled with possibility rather than dread. The following weeks brought a deepening of the connection between Olivia and Adam. They continued to work together at the medical practice, their professional relationship evolving into a true partnership as Adam recognized and encouraged Olivia's natural aptitude for medicine. In the evenings, they often shared meals or walks, gradually learning each other's stories, dreams, and fears. Adam spoke of his brothers, both killed in a Comanche raid when he was just 16, a loss that had driven him first to the cavalry in search of vengeance, then to medicine in search of redemption. Olivia revealed more about her father's decline, her broken engagement, and the painful lessons she had learned about the conditional nature of society's approval. As November arrived, bringing cooler temperatures to Superior, Adam surprised Olivia one morning at the office with an unexpected proposal. "I've been thinking," he said as they arranged instruments for the day ahead. "You have a natural talent for medicine, and you've already learned more than most medical apprentices do in their first year." Olivia smiled, pleased by the compliment. "I have an excellent teacher." "That's just it," Adam continued, suddenly earnest. "I think you could do more than assist me. With the right training, you could become a physician yourself." Olivia stared at him in shock. "A female doctor? Adam, that's not possible." "It is," he insisted. "There are women's medical colleges now in Philadelphia, Boston, New York. Not many, but they exist. And there's a tremendous need for women physicians, especially out here where female patients often go without care rather than consult a male doctor." "But the cost," Olivia protested. "The years of study. I can barely support myself now." Adam hesitated, then said, "I've been corresponding with a colleague in Philadelphia. He's on the faculty at the Women's Medical College there. He says they offer scholarships to promising students, especially those willing to practice in underserved areas after graduation." Olivia's mind was reeling. "You've been writing about me, about this possibility?" "Yes," Adam admitted. "I hope you don't mind. But watching you these past weeks, your quick understanding, your steady hands, your compassion for patients, it seemed wrong not to explore the possibility." Olivia sank into a chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he was suggesting. "I never considered such a path. Teaching was always my ambition." "And you'd be an excellent teacher," Adam said, kneeling beside her chair to meet her eyes. "But I think you could be an extraordinary doctor. Will you at least consider it?" Olivia looked into his hopeful face and felt a surge of emotion, gratitude for his belief in her, fear of such an unprecedented step, and beneath it all, a growing excitement at the possibility. "I'll consider it," she promised. That evening, unable to sleep with thoughts of medical college filling her mind, Olivia slipped out of Mrs. Sandoval's and went for a walk. The night was clear and cold, the stars brilliant above the sleeping town. Her feet carried her, almost without conscious direction, to Adam's small house on the outskirts of Superior. Light still shone from his windows despite the late hour. Gathering her courage, Olivia knocked on the door. Adam's surprise at seeing her quickly gave way to concern. "Olivia, is everything all right? Has something happened?" "No, nothing's wrong," she assured him. I couldn't sleep. I've been thinking about what you said about medical college." He ushered her inside, the propriety of a young woman visiting a man's home alone at night seeming less important than the conversation they needed to have. The interior of Adam's house was simple but neat, with bookshelves lining one wall and medical texts stacked on every available surface. "Would you like some tea?" he offered. Olivia shook her head. "No, thank you, I won't stay long. I just needed to ask. Why are you doing this? Encouraging me to pursue medicine, writing to colleges on my behalf?" Adam looked at her steadily. Because I believe in you. Because I think you have gifts that shouldn't be wasted. Is that so difficult to understand? Yes, Olivia admitted. My experience has taught me that people rarely act without expecting something in return. A flash of hurt crossed Adam's face. Is that what you think of me? That I have some ulterior motive? No, she said quickly. Not consciously. But Adam, you must realize what you're suggesting would take me away from Superior, away from you for years. After all we've shared these past weeks, why would you want that? Adam was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and intense. Because I love you, Olivia. And loving someone means wanting what's best for them, even if it isn't what's best for you. Olivia felt as though the ground had shifted beneath her feet. You love me? Yes, he said simply. I think I have since the day you walked into my office, but that doesn't mean I want to keep you here, limit your potential, make you less than what you could be. Tears filled Olivia's eyes. No one has ever believed in me the way you do. No one has ever loved me enough to put my dreams before their own desires. Adam moved closer, taking her hands in his. Then they never truly loved you at all. I love you too, Olivia whispered, the words slipping out before she could reconsider them. But once spoken, she knew they were true. Somehow, in this unlikely place, she had found a connection deeper and truer than anything she had known in Boston. Adam's eyes darkened with emotion, and he raised one hand to cup her cheek. Olivia, he murmured, and then he was kissing her, gently at first, then with increasing passion as she responded. When they finally parted, both breathing heavily, Adam rested his forehead against hers. I never expected to find you, he said softly. After all that happened, all I'd seen, I thought that part of my life was over. I thought the same, Olivia admitted. I believed I was cursed to be alone, that love wasn't meant for me. Adam pulled back slightly to look into her eyes. I don't believe in curses, remember, and even if they existed, I'd break any curse that stood between us. Olivia smiled through her tears. You're very confident in your abilities, Dr. Langley. When it comes to loving you, his smile matched hers. Absolutely. They talked long into the night, making plans and sharing dreams. By the time Olivia finally returned to Mrs. Sandoval's, slipping in quietly just as dawn was breaking, they had reached a decision. Olivia would apply to the Women's Medical College of Pennsylvania with Adam's recommendation. If accepted with a scholarship, she would go to Philadelphia for training, with the promise to return to Superior afterward. Adam would continue building his practice, preparing for a partnership with Olivia when she returned as a fully qualified physician. It was an unconventional plan, requiring years of separation and dedication. But as Olivia drifted to sleep in the early morning light, she felt a peace she hadn't known since before her father's decline. For the first time in years, she was looking toward the future with hope rather than dread. The following months were a whirlwind of preparations. Adam's colleague at the medical college responded enthusiastically to Olivia's application, impressed by her self-taught knowledge and Adam's glowing recommendation. A scholarship was offered, covering most of her tuition, with the condition that she commit to practicing in an underserved area for at least 5 years after graduation. The town of Superior reacted to the news with mixed emotions. Some, particularly the women who had come to trust Olivia with their health concerns, were supportive and proud. Others questioned the propriety of a woman pursuing such a masculine profession. A few openly disapproved, suggesting that Olivia was abandoning her proper place. Through it all, Adam remained her staunchest supporter, defending her choices to skeptics and helping her prepare for the academic challenges ahead. Their relationship deepened despite the knowledge of their impending separation, each day together becoming more precious. As spring arrived and Olivia's departure date grew closer, Adam surprised her with a proposal that she had not dared to hope for. They were walking along the creek that ran near the edge of town, the desert beginning to bloom with the brief, spectacular wildflowers that appeared after winter rains. Adam had been unusually quiet, and Olivia had respected his silence, content to walk beside him in the golden afternoon light. Suddenly, he stopped and turned to face her. "Olivia, I've been thinking about your departure, about the years ahead." She nodded, her heart constricting at the thought of leaving him. "It will be difficult, but we'll write, and the time will pass quickly with my studies." "That's just it," Adam said, taking her hands in his. "I don't want to simply wait and write letters. I want a commitment, something that binds us together even when we're physically apart." Before Olivia could respond, he knelt before her on one knee. "Olivia Holbrook, will you marry me? Not right away if that's not what you want, but someday when you're ready, when your studies are complete." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. "Adam, are you certain? It would mean years of waiting, of being separated from your wife." "I've never been more certain of anything," he replied, his blue eyes intense with emotion. "I love you, Olivia. I want to build a life with you, a practice with you, a family with you if that's what you want. But most of all, I want you to know that whatever path you choose, whatever future you create, you won't walk it alone. The curse ends here today with us." Olivia felt something release within her attention, a fear, a burden she had carried for so long she had ceased to notice its weight. "Yes," she whispered, then more strongly. "Yes, Adam Langley, I will marry you." His smile was radiant as he rose and pulled her into his arms. Their kiss was a promise, a commitment to a future they would forge together, regardless of distance or time or the challenges that lay ahead. 2 weeks later, on a clear, warm morning in late April, Olivia stood on the platform of Superior's small train station, her trunk packed for Philadelphia, her heart heavy with the impending separation from Adam. They had decided not to marry before her departure, both feeling it would be unfair to begin a marriage with years of separation, but Adam had given her his mother's ring, a simple gold band with a small diamond that Olivia wore on a chain around her neck. "4 years," Adam said, holding her hands tightly as they waited for the train. "It seems an eternity now, but it will pass. We'll write every week," Olivia promised, "and perhaps you can visit during holiday breaks." "Wild horses couldn't keep me away," Adam assured her, his attempt at a smile not quite reaching his eyes. The sound of the approaching train filled the air, and Olivia felt panic rise in her chest. "Adam, what if no what ifs?" he interrupted gently. "Only certainties. I love you, you love me. You're going to become a brilliant doctor, and when you return, we'll build a life and a practice together that will serve this community for decades to come." Olivia nodded, drawing strength from his confidence. "No more curses," she whispered. "Only choices." "Only choices," he agreed, and kissed her one last time as the train pulled into the station. Boarding the train was the hardest thing Olivia had ever done. Looking back through the window as it pulled away from the station, seeing Adam standing tall and straight, his hat in his hand, his eyes never leaving her, she wondered if she was making a terrible mistake. But as the train gathered speed and Superior fell away behind her, Olivia touched the ring hanging beneath her dress and remembered Adam's words. "I'd break any curse that stood between us." Not with superstition or magic, but with love, trust, and unwavering support. The years ahead would be challenging, the separation painful. But for the first time in her life, Olivia Holbrook was moving toward a future shaped not by fear or fate, but by choice and hope. The curse of solitude that had haunted the women of her family for generations was broken at last, not by grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but by the steady, patient love of a man who believed in her enough to let her go, and by her own courage in daring to believe that love could endure. As the Arizona desert stretched vast and beautiful outside her window, Olivia smiled through her tears. This wasn't an ending, but a beginning, the first chapter in a story they would write together, across distance and time, until they were reunited to complete it side by side. 4 years later, on a bright June morning in 1889, Olivia Holbrook, M.D., stepped off the train in Superior, Arizona Territory. The town had changed in her absence. New buildings had sprung up, the mine had expanded, and the population had grown substantially. But as she scanned the platform, her heart leapt at the sight of the one thing that mattered most. Adam Langley, standing tall in his familiar Stetson, his blue eyes fixed on her with an expression of such joy that it brought tears to her own. They moved toward each other through the crowd, and when they met, words seemed unnecessary. Adam gathered her into his arms, lifting her off her feet in an embrace that spoke volumes about the years of separation now finally ended. "Welcome home, Doctor Holbrook," he murmured against her hair when he finally set her down. Olivia looked up into the face of the man who had loved her enough to let her go, who had supported her dreams even when they took her far from him, who had proven through years of faithful correspondence that some loves truly can endure any separation. "It's good to be home, Doctor Langley," she replied, her smile brighter than the Arizona sun overhead. Then, more softly, "The curse is broken, just as you promised." Adam's answering smile was tender as he touched the ring she now wore openly on her finger. "It was never a curse, Olivia. Only a fear waiting to be conquered by love." Hand in hand, they walked away from the station toward their future, a shared medical practice, a home built on mutual respect and unwavering support, and a love that had proven stronger than distance, time, or the shadows of the past. In a town built on copper dreams, they had found a connection more precious than any metal, a love as enduring as the mountains and as vast as the desert sky. And if anyone in Superior still whispered about curses and solitude when they saw Olivia Holbrook pass by, those whispers were quickly silenced by the evidence before their eyes. A woman who had defied tradition to follow her calling, and a man who had loved her enough to help her do it. Together, they embodied a truth more powerful than any superstition: that true love doesn't limit or constrain. It liberates and empowers. 3 months after Olivia's return to Superior, she and Adam were married in a simple ceremony in the town's small church, with Mrs. Sandoval weeping joyfully in the front pew, and what seemed like the entire population of the growing mining town in attendance. Olivia wore a dress of ivory silk ordered from San Francisco, and Adam looked more handsome than ever in a new black suit, his usually unruly hair tamed for the occasion. Their shared medical practice flourished, with patients coming from miles around to consult the doctors who combined Adam's practical experience with Olivia's formal training. They built a new, larger office with 2 examination rooms and living quarters above, creating a home where their professional and personal lives could blend seamlessly. 2 years after their marriage, Olivia gave birth to their first child, a son they named James, after Adam's father. Mrs. Sandoval, now more grandmother than landlady, doted on the baby and often watched him while his parents tended to medical emergencies. As Superior continued to grow with the expanding mining operations, so did the Langley family and practice. A daughter, Catherine, joined them 3 years after James, and the children grew up in the unique environment of a family medical practice, learning compassion and service alongside their acts. Olivia never forgot the fortune teller's words or the fear they had once instilled in her. But as the years passed and her happiness with Adam deepened, those words lost their power. The curse that had haunted the women of her family for generations had been broken not by magic or grand gestures, but by the daily choice to trust, to hope, and to love without reservation. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Adam surprised Olivia with a special gift, a silver locket containing miniature portraits of their children on one side and on the other, a tiny scrap of paper bearing the words, "I'm cursed to be alone," she cried. The cowboy said, "Then I'll break that curse tonight." "To remind us of our beginning," Adam said as he fastened it around her neck, "and of the power we have to write our own endings." Olivia touched the locket, then reached up to cup his face in her hands. "I was so certain my fate was sealed that I was destined for solitude and heartbreak like the Holbrook women before me. And I was equally certain I'd spend my life alone, carrying the burden of my past," Adam replied, covering her hands with his own. "We were both wrong in the best possible way." As they stood together in the home they had built, surrounded by the evidence of their shared life, children's toys scattered on the floor, medical journals stacked on the table, the comfortable clutter of a family, Olivia realized that the true magic had never been in breaking a curse. It had been in finding the courage to believe that love could be stronger than fear, that connection could overcome isolation, and that two people who chose each other every day could rewrite any destiny. The Arizona sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson outside their window, much like the sunset on the day Olivia had first arrived in Superior. But this time, as darkness fell, she was not alone with her fears and limited prospects. She was surrounded by love, the love of her husband, her children, and the community they served together. The curse of solitude that had haunted the Holbrook women was truly broken, not for a night as Adam had once promised, but for a lifetime and beyond, as their children grew up knowing only the certainty of love, not the fear of abandonment. In the end, it was not fate or fortune that had determined Olivia's path, but the choices she and Adam had made together, choices founded on trust, respect, and a love strong enough to endure any separation or challenge. As Adam drew her into his arms, Olivia whispered against his lips, "Thank you for breaking my curse, cowboy." His answering smile held all the warmth and promise of their shared future. "It was my pleasure, Dr. Holbrook, and it always will be."